Sometimes the best road trips don't begin with a bucket list. Sometimes they begin with paperwork. This entire trip started because Dusty needed to get a few documents signed by her brother in Lake City, Florida. Since we were making the drive anyway, we looked at each other and said, well, let's see what else is nearby. 3 days later, we'd explored abandoned bathhouses, climbed observation towers, hiked to Florida's largest whitewater rapids, wandered through historic museums, chased down forgotten ruins, found a giant bat house, and met some unforgettable people. And then somehow turned one simple errand into what Dusty still calls her favorite road trip we've taken together. Welcome to our first Lake City adventure. Originally, this wasn't even supposed to happen. The plan was simple. Work Friday morning, leave after lunch, drive to Lake City. Instead, life handed us both the day off. Rather than waste 6 perfectly good road trip hours, we did what any reasonable people would do. We left immediately. That one decision completely changed the weekend. Our first accidental stop came thanks to a wrong turn that led us through Micanopy Historic Cemetery. We didn't stay long because it's already planned for a future road trip, but even a quick drive-through convinced us we'd be coming back someday. Then we headed to Payne's Prairie Preserve. We've driven through this park several times over the years, but this was our first visit to the visitor center and observation tower. Within minutes, we were looking across the prairie at wild horses and even spotting one of the park's famous bison through the viewing scopes. Not a bad way to start a road trip. After climbing 3 flights of stairs to the observation tower, we grabbed some photos, admired the view, and continued north. Because we were so far ahead of schedule, we decided to start stealing tomorrow's itinerary. Our next stop became White Sulphur Springs. This place fascinated me. Long before Florida became known for beaches and theme parks, people traveled here believing the mineral spring could cure everything from rheumatism to kidney problems. The old bathhouse still stands beside the Suwannee River as a reminder of those days. Unfortunately, restoration work meant we couldn't actually walk into the building. The boardwalk was blocked off, which may or may not have resulted in a tiny bit of trespassing. Hypothetically. I'm sure the statute of limitations has expired by now. Right next door sat Stephen Foster State Park. Dusty had talked about it for years. I finally got to see it. The museum was beautiful. The massive bell tower was even more impressive. We explored the craft village, collected another state park pin, and stamped our park books. Although one employee seemed awfully suspicious that I was actually visiting all these parks. Mind your business, lady. Yes, I've been there. Then came our biggest hike of the weekend, Big Shoals State Park. Before we'd even reached the trail, we found an unexpected bat tower. Then we headed into the woods. The hike wasn't especially difficult, but it was long enough to remind me my feet occasionally file formal complaints with management. The reward? Florida's largest whitewater rapids. Definitely worth the walk. By the time we reached the truck, I was officially sore. Thankfully, the rest of the afternoon slowed down. We drove through White Springs Historic District, met a wonderfully friendly local named Teddy Bear, who offered to arrange a private tour of one of the historic homes. We politely declined, mostly because our legs had already voted against any additional adventures. We finished the day visiting John's house, Falling Creek Falls, the historic Falling Creek Church and Cemetery, and finally the giant bat house tucked inside Spirit of the Suwannee Music Park. After grabbing dinner, we checked into our hotel where things got interesting. There was a slight misunderstanding between the office personnel and me regarding our reservation. So after a brief conversation and producing my reservation, this misunderstanding was cleared up. No fines, no room charge, no drama. Well, minimal drama. By the end of the evening, we'd already finished most of the entire itinerary. So naturally, we started adding more stops. Because apparently we don't know how to vacation any other way. 5 hours of sleep later, it was time to do it all again. Our first stop became Walmart. Not exactly glamorous, but my feet had staged a full-scale rebellion after yesterday's hike. New insoles, a leave, problem mostly solved. After breakfast at Waffle House, we headed to the Suwannee River State Park. This park surprised me. We explored several trails, visited the tiny Columbus Cemetery, photographed an owl, cardinals, and some impressive Civil War earthworks. Unfortunately, we never did convince that owl to pose with my telephoto lens. From there, we went searching for Suwannee Spring, or more specifically, some forgotten ruins we'd heard about. The GPS confidently took us to the wrong place. We searched anyway. Nothing. Sometimes that's just how exploring works. Next came our museum marathon, except the Columbia County Historical Museum was closed. Well, that's disappointing. Thankfully, the Suwannee County Historical Museum more than made up for it. The volunteer there welcomed us like old friends, let us photograph everything, and even showed us how the old switchboard telephone worked. It turned out to be one of my favorite museums of the trip. Then we drove over to the historic Hamilton County Jail. Closed. Again. At this point, closed museums were becoming a recurring theme. Since we were already in Jasper, Dusty decided she needed another historic brick for her collection. As her trusted getaway driver, I noticed a police officer sitting nearby. Naturally, I informed her that today's brick theft operation had been compromised. Turns out, he was just waiting for a funeral procession. But why ruin a perfectly good story with facts? After finally getting the paperwork signed, which was the entire reason we came to Lake City in the first place, we suddenly had most of the afternoon still available. So, road trip logic kicked in. We drove an hour west to Forest Capitol Museum State Park. It ended up being one of the biggest surprises of the weekend. The ranger even found 2 collectible pins that visitors normally can't buy. That alone made our day. Before heading back, Dusty's brother gave us directions to the ruins we had been searching for all morning. This time, we found them. Sometimes, all you need is advice from someone who actually knows the area. That little victory felt like the perfect ending to an already fantastic day. By Sunday, we'd once again managed to finish our itinerary ahead of schedule. So, we improvised. Again. We tracked down the historic marker for the steamboat city of Hawkinsville, visited Fanning Springs, looked for Fort Fanning, and eventually made our way to Dudley Farm Historic State Park. I absolutely loved Dudley Farm. Historic buildings, farm equipment, animals, and enough photographs to keep me busy for quite a while afterward. Our final planned stop was the historic Hale Homestead. This was one I'd wanted to visit for a long time. Built in the 1850s, the home is famous for its talking walls, where generations of the Hale family covered the walls with more than 12,000 handwritten words. The house itself was incredible. The tour? Well, let's just say it had its moments. But standing inside a home that had preserved so much personal history made it a memorable way to close the weekend. One final stop for citrus juice. One long drive home, and another adventure officially came to an end. This trip reminded me that some of the best road trips don't start with grand plans. Sometimes they're built around an ordinary errand. Sometimes the museums are closed. Sometimes the GPS is wrong. Sometimes your feet hurt. Sometimes strangers become part of the story. And sometimes leaving 6 hours early changes everything. Over the next several weeks, we're going to revisit every one of those stops, uncover the history hiding behind each location, and share all of the unexpected moments that made this weekend unforgettable. So if you'd like to come explore North Florida with us, I'd love to have you along for the journey. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and remember, every place has a story. You just have to slow down long enough to hear it.